Hello guys, let's start by reviewing what we did last time. If you go back to your last notes, I remember we say that A, located right in front of the trig function, represents your amplitude. It tells you the highest, by far is the highest or the lowest point from the axis. B will help you find the period and the critical point. And if you remember, the period is usually 2 pi over b if it's in radian, or 360 over b if it's in degrees. And the critical point is usually 360 over 4b, or 2 pi over 4b if it's in degrees and radian. Your up and down move are determined by the value that is usually isolated from the trig function. This C represents your up and down shift, and your left and right will always be inside the parentheses. Using this knowledge, let's go ahead and start our day 2 notes. Starting with number 1, we have y is equal to 3 plus 5 cosine of 2/3, and we have theta minus 150. By the way, every time you see theta, you know it's in degrees. You do not need to see degrees to know that it's theta. And if you see x, that will be in radian. X is radian, and theta is degrees. So every time you see x, you know it's in radian, and if you see theta, you know it's in degrees. Let's go ahead and analyze this first one. The 5 that I see here represent my amplitude. The 2/3 is my b, so I can say b is equal to 2/3. Therefore, if I do, knowing that it's in degrees, if I do 360 divided by 2/3, that will give me my value of my period. So I will say period here is equal to 360 over 2/3. And if you divide 360 by 2/3, you should end up with 540. So my period is equal to 540 degrees. Let's go ahead and also look for the critical point. To find the critical point, all you have to do is say critical point is equal to, I will put it right next to the period, critical point is 360 over 4b, meaning 4 times 2/3. You do not need a calculator for this. All you need to do, you can first simplify the 360 over 4 to say this is 90 divided by 2/3. Copy, change, flip, 90 times 3 divided by 2, and you should give you 135 degrees. In other words, your x-axis will be labeled from 0 to 135. After 135, you will keep on going on. All right. Let's start by looking for, let's go ahead and look for our left and right shift. Left and right shift, I know that with my negative 150, I know that I'm moving to the right 150 degrees. The plus 3 tells me I'm moving up 3 units. Let's go ahead and try to graph this line, this function. Always start with my x-axis, and here is my y-axis. To label it, knowing that I'm moving everything 3 units up, so since I'm moving everything 3 units up, I will go ahead and make myself a dotted line at 3. So imagine this is 3. I'll put myself a dotted line at 3. So this point is actually at 3. Above 3, I'm going to reach 8. And below 3, I'm going to reach negative 2. So this is 8, this is negative 2. The reason I get 8 is because I'm adding the amplitude to 3 to get the highest point, and I'm subtracting the amplitude from 3 to get to the lowest point. Now, this line represents my 0. After 0, the first point I should get is, since I'm moving 150 to the right, so my first point is at 150. So this is 150. After 150, if I add 135, I should reach my next one, which is at 285. But by the way, if I subtract 150, I should reach 15. All these are in degrees. So you go ahead and label all your graph. This is 285, this is 420, followed by 555. The next one will be 640, followed by 825 and 960. They all in degrees. Now, the main and number one point that I want to see on your graph is the starting point. And that starting point is the point as if you move 150 units to the right. So it's going to be the point above 150. Now we're starting up because this sign is positive. So because this is positive, you're going to start up. If it was negative, you start down. And the reason I say up is because it's cosine. I mentioned this on the previous video. Cosine is up or down. Sine start at the origin. If it was sine, we will start at this dotted line that I have, or this dashed line. Since it's cosine, we're starting up all the way till the highest point, meaning starting here. Now from here, you know the shape of a cosine, so it will keep going to 0, then go all the way to the lowest point, which is right here. It will go back to 0, to the highest point, to 0, to the lowest point. So if I want to graph this, it will give me something like this. Something like this. But did I complete a full cycle? No. To make a full cycle, I need to go back. The next one should be at 0, which is about 15. And if I find the next one on this side, it should be at negative 120, because if I subtract, the negative 120 would be here, somewhere here. Because if you subtract 135 from this, you get to negative 120. Note that this date, this 3 and this negative 2 are both on the y, are all on the y-axis. So let's go ahead and continue with our graph. The graph will keep going. It will go through this point, and at negative 120 is going to be below. Now I have a full cycle. Keep in mind you can continue on both sides. So I will make it curve here just to say it's continuing. I have 2 full cycles. Now let's go ahead and talk about the domain. The domain here is from negative infinity to infinity, because we do not know where it's going to start or where it's going to end. So the domain is from negative infinity to infinity, and the range here will be always between negative 2 and 8, and we definitely need brackets around negative 2 and 8. Let's go ahead and try the second one. The second one, we have y equals negative 5 plus 6 times pi over 5 x minus 2. This time is in radian. Notice that we have an x. I do not need to tell you that it's in radian, because once you see x, you should know that it's in radian. Let's study our function. The negative 5, that tells me we're going down 5. The negative 2 here tells me I'm going right 2. The fact that it's sine and it's positive, I'm starting in the middle, going up. Positive tells you going up, sine means starting in the middle. Let's go ahead and find our amplitude. Amplitude here is equal to 6. Let's find our period, knowing that b is equal to pi over 5. So period is equal to 2 pi over b, meaning over pi over 5. If you simplify the pi, you should end up with the period, which is equal to, copy, change, flip, you will end up with 10. The critical point now is 2 pi over 4b. Another way from 2 pi over 4b is also pi over b. So if I do pi over b, Normally it's 2 pi over 4b is pi over 2b. If I do pi over 2b, I should end up with 10. In other words, it's going to be this one divided by 4. If you divide by 2, you get 5. You divide by 4, you get 2.5. All right. Now that I have all this information, let's go ahead and graph our function. I always start with my x and y axis. Sorry, this is not what I want. I want this as my x-axis, and I do want this as my y-axis. The reason I gave myself a little bit more room on the bottom is because I'm shifting everything 5 units down. So if I shift everything 5 units down, I will get to something like this. Let's say this is my 5 units down. In other words, I'm saying that I'm shifting my axis 5 units down. This is my -5, this being 0. Now my amplitude is 5. So since I shifted everything down, my amplitude is 6. It means that from -5, my highest point should be here at 1, and my lowest point should be somewhere here at -11. Let's go ahead and label our axis. To label my axis, I need to have everything by 2.5, the distance between two lines, labeling. But everything shifted 2 units to the right. So if I start at 2, somewhere here, the next one should be 4.5, and you will keep labeling them all the way till you make sure that you have 2 complete cycles. So 2, 4.5, 7, 9.5, 12, 14.5, and I have 17. Let's go ahead and put a few more all the way till 19. If I have 14.5, 17, and then I have 19.5 here. Let's stop there for now and see if we have exactly 2 complete cycles. Knowing that it's a sine function, we say we're starting in the middle and going up because it's positive. So if I start in the middle, the first point I will put is somewhere here at 2 because everything shifted 2 units. That's what I call the middle of your sinusoidal function. Going up, it means that this one will be, the next one will be at the highest point, which is here. Do not put a point here. After the highest point, we should go back to the middle, then the lowest point at -11, then middle, then highest point, then middle, lowest point, and I can keep going on and on. So let's go ahead and graph it. The graph should look like this. Try to be as accurate as you can. I'm not going to be checking on how accurate you are. Of course, continue on both sides, somewhat on both sides. Now, if I want to know where exactly, if I want to see what is the y-intercept, from 2, if I subtract 0.5, I get to -0.5, which is somewhere here. And that -0.5 should be at the lowest point, meaning at -11. So if this is -0.5, I do have a point here, and it will come, my graph will come all the way to here and curve. Now let's go ahead and give our domain and range, just like we did on the previous one. The domain is from -infinity to infinity. By the way, the domain of any sine or cosine function is from -infinity to infinity. However, the range will always change. The lowest point is at -11, and the highest point is at 1. Of course, with bracket around them. Let's go ahead and try to do the next one. Seems like this video gonna be as long as the other 2. We have another sine function and another cosine function, but this time I have 2 here for sine, and it's negative, meaning starting in the middle going down. Compared to the number 4, that one will be starting, you cannot start in the middle. Since it's cosine, you're going to be starting down. The reason you start down is because it's negative. I will give you all the information and I will require you to graph it. Now, we have an amplitude here of 7. Amplitude is 7. Beside the amplitude, I know that I'm going up 3 and left pi over 4. And I have my period should be, knowing that B is 2, I will say, since it's in radian, I will say 2 pi over 2, which is pi. And the critical point is therefore not 2 pi over, instead of over 2, it's going to be 2 pi over 4. Therefore, it's going to be pi over 4. The critical point is always the period divided by 4. With this information, you can now graph your function. I want you to graph this function for me and bring it to class. I'll go ahead and jump to the next one. Remember, this is the most important information. Middle going down. You start in the middle and you be going down. Critical point tells you by how much you're going to be labeling your axis. And up 3 left pi over 4 tells you how you're shifting your original point. Let's go ahead and do number 4. Number 4, I have y equal 5 minus 2 cosine of 1/4. For number 4, I will start by saying my amplitudes here. Amplitude is 2 instead of 2. That tells you that you're going 2 units up and 2 units down from your axis. Your period here is 2 pi over 1/4. Copy, change, flip. That will give you 8 pi. And your critical point is your period over 4. If you do 8 pi over 4, you should get 2 pi. Let's look at the shift here. You're starting down, by the way. That's just the start point. Start down. However, it's going up 5. And beside the up 5, you will go also right pi. Let's go ahead and graph this real quick. I will start by building my axis. My axis will be something like this and like this. I gave myself more room up because I know I'm going up 5. And my up 5, I will be somewhere here. I went 5 units up because it goes on both sides. After my 5 units up, I can now label my axis, knowing that my amplitude is 2. So from the 5 units up, if I go 2 above and 2 below, I will get to 7 and 3. Now it says here I'm starting down, so the first point I will have will be down. Let's go ahead and label our axis. The first point here will be from 0. I'm doing it, the critical point here is 2 pi. So 0, and I'm shifting pi units to the right. So the first one I want to see is pi. After pi, the next one is 3 pi, followed by 5 pi, 7 pi, 9 pi's, 11 pi's, 13 pi, 15 pi's, and you can keep going on and on. I'll stop at 15. We say that we will be starting down. To start down, it means I'm starting somewhere here at pi. From here, I can now start down, middle, up, middle, down, middle, up, and middle. And it will keep going. But I need complete cycle. So after 15, if I keep going, I have 17 pi. That will be on right here down. And you always want to continue a little bit on both sides. And I always want to see the one that crossed the axis. So after pi, what comes next? If I subtract 2 pi, that'll be at negative pi. So I do need to see also this one. Now it's not going to be negative pi. It's supposed to be a nice purple dot, just as 12 pi. So a negative pi after going down is supposed to go back to the middle. So if I want to graph it, this is how it will look like. Try to be as curvy as you can on these. And you go up and go continuous on this side. Now, domain and range, you can already write it, but the domain here is always negative infinity to infinity for sine and cosine function, but the range in this case is from 3 to 7 with bracket around both. Notice that I left this for you, number 3. We're going to number 5. Number 5, let's study it as fast as we can. We're going to be going down 12. I'm going to the left 4. I forgot to write the starting point. This time we're starting, hopefully you can see my yellow handwriting, starting up. We start up because it's cosine and it's positive. I completely shaded. Cosine positive. Now let's keep going with the study of our functions. Go down 12, left 4. My amplitude here is definitely 20. My period is, because I'm working in degrees, since I have theta, it will be 360 divided by 30. And if you divide 360 by 30, you get 12. The critical point, on the other hand, would be 12 over 4. And if you divide 12 by 4, you get 3. Let's go ahead and graph this function. Showing that I'm going down 12, I will try to have my axis, once again I made this mistake, I will have my axis high up here, and this one going down like this. Now I'm shifting everything 12 units down. I recommend that you graph this dotted line 12 units down, assuming it's here. After 12 units down, you're going 8 units up and down. I mean 20 units up and down, because your amplitude is 20. So let's go ahead and go 20 units up and down. If I go 20 units up from negative 12, I will reach a point above the axis at 8. And if I go down from negative 12, I will reach a point of negative 32. Now let's label our axis. Since I'm labeling every 3 units, the first one, knowing that I shifted 4 units to the I've shifted 4 units left, so the first one would be at negative 4. So here's my negative 4. After negative 4, I need to reach also negative 1. Sorry, you should label this one instead. Negative 4, negative 1, 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, and 17. You can keep going. 20. Once again, you do not have to label this portion, the dotted line. But let's go ahead and graph it now. I'll start by putting dots wherever I need a graph to go through. At negative 4, since it was cosine and we say we're starting up, this is the first point. After up, remember we're going middle and then down, then middle, then up, middle, down, middle, up. So let's go ahead and graph it. If I connect my dots, this is what I should see. I should see a cosine function looking similar to mine. And of course, you always want to graph a little extra on both sides. I have a complete cycle here. The domain is from negative infinity to infinity as always, and the range is from negative 3 to, meaning 32, till 8. Alright guys, go back to this and practice. I gave you the biggest hint, middle going down. We're going to practice more in class.